Welcome to the Inside Climbing Podcast, and I'm joined this week by Natalie Berry and Louise Flockhart, who have both won bronze medals at the British Bouldering Championship in years gone by. And we thought we'd talk about the 2026 version of the British Bouldering Championship, which Louise competed in. When I did research, I was looking at both of you guys' stats for British Bouldering, and also Natalie, you for British League Championship, and seeing you won British League Championship back in 2010.
A long time ago. Another life.
And then you got third back in 2018, a little bit of a renaissance.
Yeah, that was my first British Boulder Championships in a long time. And getting back into it, that was really good fun. That was when I realised that I could try to be a boulderer and got back on the team. But yeah, interesting to try the new style and mix with the younger climbers. It was quite a challenge.
And Louise, you took a year off competing after winning bronze in both 2023 and 2024. How was competing again?
It was definitely strange because going into both 2023 and 2024 when I won those medals, I was training pretty much full time and my goals for those events were very much to make podium and to make finals, whereas this event my own expectations were quite different, and I was kind of just using it as a benchmarking event to see what I need to improve on if I want to get back into comps. So in a way it was quite nice not having the pressure and the expectations on myself, and then also because I didn't compete in 2025, it meant that I was unranked. So day one I was climbing at 3 p.m. and there was basically no one who I knew there, which was quite nice because quite often you go into qualification day, you're in reverse or you're in success order from the previous year. So the first 20 climbers are really good and it's really intense. Whereas on the Saturday, I just got up, went for a chilled breakfast,
nice, leisurely,
walked past the Man U stadium and then pulled up to the climbing centre at 3 p.m.
It did make our job in media quite a bit harder because we essentially all were waiting for you to come out because you were the last person of any notes, really. In qualifications, it was we have to stay here till 3.
Sorry about that.
We can't leave early. But yeah. Do we want to start off with women first, since that was in some ways more straightforward? So Emma Edwards won. Erin McNeice pulled out 2 days before, which it's just essentially made Emma favourite for the event by a wide margin, and she really showed throughout the whole event how good she is and how dominant she is. She won every single round. She fell once in the final. It was really, really impressive from her.
Yeah, I think Emma's results last season were just absolutely standout. I think she was definitely the favourite for me, your World Cup finalist, even though she didn't get to compete in the final. Yeah, I think it was hers to lose, really. And I think these events, they always have quite a lot of pressure riding on them for the top British athletes. So I think as soon as Erin dropped out, she would have realised, this is my chance to take a win and her first BBC's title. So yeah, she did really well to keep it together in each of the rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I used to compete against Emma back in the day. I say back in the day, it was about 2 years ago. And her acceleration over the past 2 years has been crazy. Basically, since she finished high school, starting to train full time, she really did make the most of that opportunity. And her performance has just come on so quickly. Quite similar to what we saw with Erin 2-3 years ago. So I'm actually really excited to see what Emma gets up to this season on the World Cup stage, because she really deserves all of the success that she gets. And I do really want to see her in a final, because I was actually at the Prague World Cup last year and it was so bad that they couldn't compete in that final. So yeah, I hope Emma has a good season this year.
When I think about the British athletes, there's kind of, in the women, you have Erin and Emma are the top two, who are the World Cup athletes and have really shown how well they've done. And then you have a group of athletes below them who are really, really good sort of locally and will compete and do a lot of the comps and win lots of the comps, which I think, Louise, you would have been part of that group.
Probably.
But Zoe and Lucy, because Lucy came back from injury, my understanding. She was out last year. And then you've got This is where there's so many Isabellas. Like Isabella Eddington, is she an Isabella or is she an Izzy or?
I think she's an Izzy.
Izzy
Edgington.
Izzy Edgington. So you got Izzy Edgington.
Yeah, they're all Izzy's, unhelpfully.
Wow, there's like three Izzies, three Izzies or slash Iggies and a Livy, and so very confusing.
And Eugenia, and then you have some of the younger athletes like Izzy Bridgens, and it was Iggy's first final, BBC senior final as well. And so, who for you stood out? Because you guys probably know them far better than I do.
Louise, you go fast.
For me, well, I actually couldn't really watch that many of the rounds. I only watched the final and I actually had to leave the venue, so I was just watching the live stream too. But for me, I think the standout athletes are the ones who are up and coming. So Zoe and Eugenie have a lot of experience, but Izzy Bridgens, for example, has just come up from the junior scene and she's actually secured, I think, part of the UK Sport Performance Programme for this year. Which is really impressive. Faye McDougall wasn't in finals, but she's also qualified for that. So Izzy, her performance has been really impressive. Also, Iggy's super young. I think this is probably the first year where she's actually eligible to compete in seniors. So to be in finals was really impressive. And for me, a standout moment for her was Boulder 4 in the semi-finals. Basically, everyone... If it's the Lachey boulder, everyone was coming out looking so confused. I tried that boulder. I could not generate the swing for the life of me. And Iggy literally came out and made it look so easy and so smooth. And she's one of the shorter competitors. And I feel like with dynamic movements, people always say, oh, you're so advantaged if you're tall. But Iggy on that boulder showed that no, it's not about your height, it's about your skill level, and that was a really impressive one for me. Also, Livy Gent, I've competed against her a couple times before, but she hadn't really been on my radar till this year, so that was nice that she got to make finals as well.
Yeah, I'd say watching Iggy on the Lachey on the live stream was amazing. It was really funny, actually, because there were so many comments on the YouTube stream being like, this problem's impossible, the setters have overcooked it, it's too far, like it's not physically possible. And it did look really hard from the angle, like it just looked like you wouldn't be able to generate enough force and land it properly, but she just came out and just did it so easily. That was a really special moment, probably one of the standout moments. Other people that stood out, I think Zoe Petermans is so impressive, so consistent. I think I should have checked, but I'm pretty sure she's made a podium in pretty much every British, BBCs, BLCCs in the last few years. She's just so consistent across both disciplines. I'm pretty sure there was definitely talk about her, she'd podiumed in every... last year, certainly.
She definitely was on the podium last year and the year before, yeah.
But she's just always, in the mix, and... yeah, had a really good sort of Boulder World Cup season last year, and great that she's stamped a ticket for next year as well. And Eugenie Lee, she's also working full time as well, I think. So it's always impressive to see her, keeping up in the top in the finalists. She was 5th, I think.
So what was Lucy's injury, Louise?
Yeah, Lucy had a finger injury for most of last season, which meant that she missed out on a lot of both junior and senior opportunities. But she did come back in for Youth World Championships last year and had a really good performance out there. So that was nice to see. And to my knowledge anyway, she's fully back now. I know her injuries have gone. So I think she'll probably be looking to have a pretty good season.
Because this is also a selection event for all of the athletes. It's not just who is the best in Britain. It's also really important for people who want to go and do World Cups next year, who want to go and do the European Cups, which that circuit is growing each year and becoming more professional as well, and becoming more of a bridge between the local national circuits and the World Cup, which climbing really lacks. it'd be exciting to see what will happen. This year should be quite fun to see like all the newcomers, right? Because it's like we're 2 years out from the Olympics. We kind of know what the pathway for the Olympic qualifiers is going to be in 2027, which is going to be really, really hard unless you're one of the top people in your continent, really. And then so everyone's focused. So 2028 is when everyone's going to have maybe a chance, and everyone who comes onto the scene in 2026, that's when they might get a chance to try and secure their spot. So it's going to be exciting to see how the youngsters develop.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Iggy. I was at a wall in London the other day and she just happened to be there with some friends. And yeah, she's so small, but she could do these dynamic moves that I just couldn't touch. And I'm like really tall. So yeah, she's really impressive. Just her movement skills are incredible. And yeah, I'm really excited to see her on the circuit. Well, if she gets selected for the Europeans, maybe.
I think based off the selection policy, I think she will be selected for the European Cups. But yeah, you mentioned that the British Championships is now combined with the GB trials, which I think is an interesting point. This is something that the first time that this happened was in 2025, and my opinion is I don't really like it. I think it puts too much pressure on. Because it like puts too much pressure on the national championships. Unless you're one of a very, very small number of pre-qualified athletes, you have to peak, or not necessarily peak, but you have to perform at national championships. National championships is now in January, and the season runs from April to October. So it effectively ruins your off-season, which in terms of long-term performance is not what you want to do in the slightest. And even those athletes who are pre-qualified are still expected to perform at national championships. Like Natalie mentioned earlier, like Emma had a lot of pressure on that event, but why should she? It's the middle of her off-season. So I do think that is not, I don't know, I think the reason that it's happened is probably due to BMC finances, and that's understandable. And they did put on a really, really good event, but I do think that it would be better if they could separate those events and not make the top athletes have to perform in the middle of off-season.
You could have the US system where you have both events and you have to compete twice.
Well, I almost think that would be better, to be honest. It's like, I think it's kind of, at the minute, the way that it works is if you don't get one standout result, your whole performance from the previous season is basically irrelevant. So maybe you could make like, I don't even think semi-finals and World Cups count. Maybe they do. But you could have like, you could come one place out of semis 3 times, 4 times, and it would be irrelevant. And then if you slip off a boulder at national championships, you're off the team for the next year. Whereas at least if there was 2 events, you could not slip the next time. But it's tough out here, and I understand why they have to do it, but I'm not sure if it's the best situation for people who want to get on the team and people who are already on the team.
Yeah, I think it's changed a bit since I was on the team, but yeah, having to perform at one event is, even especially on home turf, like everyone's like, oh, it's home turf, like it's an advantage. I don't think it is. I think it's like British climbers always seem to feel the pressure so much more at home than on like the World Cup mats. And the timing, I looked at the date, and when they moved the BBCs and the BLCCs to January, I just felt sorry for everyone because you'd have to be stressing about training over Christmas and New Year. And I mean, I guess it's better than the summer, like it used to be at the outdoor event in Sheffield. But for the athletes who were doing the World Cups, that was worse. But it was maybe better for the athletes who weren't selected, even though it was the middle of the summer holidays as well. But I felt like people were sort of, maybe a bit fitter then because they're like in the season. But I don't think there's a perfect solution.
I feel like they either need to stick it right at the start of the season, but then you don't really have time to do selections, or almost like at the end of the season and then just train with that team over off season. But then again, it's so hard because so much can change in one off season. So we're out here trying to trying to coordinate an impossible job.
It would be good to have a more holistic selection, but I know it's kind of difficult when you're looking for like strict results, and it's not like speed climbing. It's hard. So you have to sort of make a decision somehow. But yeah, I'm glad I'm not selecting. That's for sure.
You sort of see this a lot actually through many of the national championships around this time, like the Japanese BJC was the week after BVC's, and that is as, if not, I imagine even more stressful for those guys as well, because again, that's their only qualifier event. And yeah, Tomoa quite infamously did not qualify for the lead team because he slipped low or Z-clipped low on one of the semi-final route, or didn't get on the team that year and didn't do any of the lead World Cups, even though he has made multiple finals. It's a hard process for everyone. So moving on to the men's competition. I was quite excited for the men's competition because you have this cohort in the men's group, which is Diane Akhtar, Jack McDougall, Max Milne, and Hamish MacArthur, and Toby Roberts when he's fit and well. And you have like that team of like 4 or 5 people who are all really, really good. And it was really, really cool to just, Toby wasn't competing, but the other 4 all were. And you have 4 climbers who are World Cup finalists, World Championship finalists, World Cup medal winners, Olympic finalists. And kind of getting to see them perform was really, really cool. And I found it quite interesting just to see how they did across like the different styles of boulders, and how across both semis and finals, and seeing how they kind of split. So Diane really showed how good he is on physical blocks in a final with 2 really hard physical blocks on it, and then Jack, I think, did really, really well in semi-final, which was maybe less physical, and you could really sort of see his skill set sort of come through on that. But Diane has been so close. He's got 2 bronze medals in the past, and so it was really awesome for him to kind of take the win in a field which contains the best of Britain.
Yeah, I couldn't predict it at all. I was like, it could be anyone's day. It just depends what happens. And I thought the setting in the final in particular was really good, like a mix of boulders, but yeah, incredibly physical on like the orange shoulder jump thing. Like, I don't even know, like the elevated door, like backwards press between 2 orange volumes. It just looked like a really shoulder intensive round. I was a bit worried that people would get injured. But yeah, Diane certainly showed how strong he is. I think it must be on home turf for him as well, because he trains at the Manchester depot. So maybe it does help climbing at your home wall to some extent. But yeah, managed the pressure really well.
I think Jack always climbs so beautifully on technical boulders. So although I didn't get to watch the semis, I know how he climbs. So that would have been nice to watch. And then, yeah, as you said, Diane's so strong. He's definitely like a powerhouse within the GB team. But all of the GB boys are so strong at the minute. And even like Luca Martin's kind of coming up too. He's super strong. It was nice to see him in finals. And I think this set was actually pretty interesting, especially the slab boulder for the men at the start. I was confused. Like, sometimes normally when I look at women's boulders, I can understand what you're meant to do, but sometimes I look at men's boulders and I can't even figure it out. And that was kind of one of those boulders, that slab. So I think the setting team actually did a really good job throughout all the rounds, actually, of having sets that had interesting boulders at the right difficulty level, that weren't just powerful, weren't just technical. They did a really good job of having variety in every round. I really like that they now have the 8 people in the finals. It makes it a bit longer and a bit, I don't know, there's a bit more unpredictability in it, and it's good if you qualify in 7th or 8th. I wonder how many finals we would have made in years past if it was 8.
But yeah, it's a good mix of athletes.
Yeah, it's the benefit of having 8 athletes is people get more chance to experience what a final is like, and they can get used to it, and you can have that wider representation within a final, and even just within a local national one is allowing people from different parts of the country to get a chance to feel what a final feels like, because finals, as both of you know, finals feel different from semi-finals.
Yeah, it's good to get your money's worth as well. 3 rounds instead of 2.
And I do think as well, they do feel different, but in the new format, when it's like not the, I don't know what the formats are called, but in the new finals format, it does almost feel more similar to a semi-final, which probably does like affect. I quite like the old finals format, but then I can see how the new finals format can be more interesting, but
it's harder to follow at home as well.
Especially with split screen.
Yeah, there's just a few too many climbers, I think.
It was because they ran men and women's at the same time in the final, which whilst also having at times 2 athletes per gender out, which meant you had at the start of it 4 athletes out at the time, sort of very similar to like a single gender semi-final, and so it felt quite chaotic at times. And being there in person was actually in some ways easier, because especially when like the woman would top the boulder often earlier, and then you focus on who else is left, and it was because you don't see the split screen, you just see the wall. And I don't know, it felt less chaotic than I think it was for you guys watching at home.
It was just sometimes they only had a split screen of 2, so you only had like 2 out of the 8 climbers at some points, and I think occasionally at one point it went to 3 climbers, like a 3 screen, but then yeah, most of the time it was just 2 climbers, and inevitably you'd get moments where someone was making progress or about to top, but then the camera would move to someone who'd just fallen off on the mats or was celebrating on the mats, so the classic sort of missing the moment. But yeah, it looked quite difficult to coordinate that. And I know that the wall of the depot is kind of this long competition wall, and I'm not sure if a wide angle would have helped much. Maybe some people would have preferred that. But I mean, the shots were good that they were getting. It just, we didn't have enough of them to get a fuller picture.
And I think it's also challenging just because of how many cameras you need to have just to have that 4-way split screen, and you have to have 4 cameras out constantly. And I think... and have the space for that and have it set up. And it's, I kind of, my personal one is I like it when you have 1 men, 1 woman, 6 athletes in final. I still prefer that as a format, and you still have the 2 athletes, so you can go between the 2. Obviously, which then becomes when you split the genders up, as they have done for broadcast, you just get 1 athlete at a time and 6 athletes. And I can see why they went to 8. I understand why they've done what they've done, but I like having 6, which maybe we'll have come back for the Olympics. Maybe we'll have 6 for the Olympics with only with 12-ish people competing in the first round. That maybe we'll have the 6 finalists come back. But I think that worked better from a managing time and how quickly you went through the boulders.
Yeah, I think we've still got a long way to go with the broadcasting, and it is getting better, but when the formats keep changing, it's a bit like constantly moving goalposts. I feel sorry for the production teams, but yeah, we'll get there. One day we'll find the perfect balance between everything.
And maybe that day could be this month with the Pro Climbing League. That's another new format. That's meant to be more exciting. So we'll see how that goes, and maybe IFSC would end up adopting it, but we'll have to wait and see for that one.
My understanding is that for the Pro Climbing League, like the seeding round, and also I think the qualifiers for the qualifier round, both of those, I think it sounds like from what the Font Wandsworth has on their website, it's going to be classic format in some way and not the 1v1 format. At least that was my understanding of it. But we'll see. I'm excited to see. Having new formats is always good.
Yeah, I guess because it's the racing format, it has to be, well, especially in the finals, it has to be, well, not racing, I don't think they're calling it racing,
It,
but yeah,
it
definitely has
the
to
racing
be.
format.
The racing, speed bouldering.
It will be interesting to see how that works out, and also how it scales, because you can see, because they're going to have 8 men, 8 women, right, for a final, and that runs for 4 hours with everything included inside of that. And so it would be interesting to see, or how would that work if you had 100 people, or it's an invite only league, so you could just have it be 24 people. But how would you, if you were to have, say, 16 men, 16 women, 32 athletes, how long would that take? How would you run it all if you did still want to keep the 1v1 format? So yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see how they try and scale that out. The only thing I had extra about the men to add was Max had a bit of a mare, to use a northern term, in the final. Things didn't quite go his way, and then he showed how strong he is and topped the hardest blocks. So it's very Max Milne in some ways.
Yeah, a good redemption story, I think. But he's pre-selected, right?
Yeah, I think he is. I really feel for Max. He was looking so strong last season. And obviously I'm Scottish, so I really like Max, so I might be biased. But he had his foot injury, which took him out of World Championships, which is devastating because he's in such good form. And I think coming back into this season, it's his first big comp again. He definitely would have wanted to perform, and I don't think he would have been happy with 5th. But the last boulder, it still shows that he has got the form and he can perform. So although it maybe wasn't a podium finish for him this time, I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does on the World Cup circuit, because he does bring just such a nice energy, and he always looks like he's having fun, even though, well, maybe not on Boulder 1, but he always brings good vibes, and he's a great person to have on the team.
Yeah, I think a foot injury is just it's probably even worse than a finger or upper body injury, because the trust you have to have in it for bouldering, and especially the new style of boulders where you're just slamming your feet into walls constantly, and it's not easy to come back from that and have the confidence, I think.
Yeah, especially to have that for slab climbs, and so often, especially in World Cups, the slab climbs the climb which you have to do well on, and if you can't do well on the slab, then it makes everything a lot harder. I thought it'd be cool to talk about the route setting, because I know, Louise, you praised it at the start, and although qualifiers isn't streamed, the qualification blocks were also really good, and it was really interesting to see. And it was worth saying that for the senior finalists, the team, they had Pierre Breuer, the French, one of the French national setters who also set up the Olympics and World Cups. He was part of the setting team alongside. So Dave Barons led the team with Nathan Phillips and Ewan McFadden.
Well, I don't mind talking through the women's qualification boulders since I climbed them and hardly anyone will have. But I thought that setting for British Championships is a hard job, because what you want to do is separate the top 24 competitors from the rest of the field, but the range of abilities within that field is massive. You've got people who maybe this is their first national competition, all the way up to World Cup finalists, and everything in between. So in the women's field, I think the cutoff for semis was 1 top, but I think that it is actually better that they set on the harder end, because I know for me it's if you're getting in the top 20 and you need 4 tops, it's just so annoying. So I do think they set the round at a good level. The first boulder was this blue boulder on a vertical wall, and you started with a press, and then you had to do a pretty flexible hip move, which, speaking of one athlete, Lucy Garlick, incredible climber. This move is probably V4. Lucy I think either couldn't do it or spent almost her entire qualification 5 minutes on this move, which is crazy, because it was, okay, maybe probably was not V4, but yeah, that just shows it's it's so important to have different styles, because just one thing like that can shut you down. And then the top for that was like a dynamic move where you had to be pretty precise, and that was one of the boulders that I topped. The second boulder was a very technical climb that involved a lot of precision footwork and a lot of dual text footholds and like really small footholds. And because I don't do that much comp style anymore, I was so scared on the dual text foothold. But the key to unlocking this one was very much to just trust you had to stand on like the no text and then kind of maneuver yourself around the volume. And then the last move, you had to be very dynamic into a pretty bad hold. So I thought that was a good one. But potentially that was the most top boulder. One of those two was the most top boulder. And then the next three all got very few tops. There was this pink boulder that was very powerful. I think on the demo video on the live stream, it didn't look super powerful. But once I tried it like 3 times, I was basically out of energy. And that involved a coordination flip. And then for the top section, there was a big bicep-y move. And then you had to stand up into a far away hold. But it was really awkward to generate because there was no feet and you just had to go into a pretty bad hold again. So that was definitely power. And then by boulder 4, I was thinking, oh, we need a rest by this point. No, it's apparently not. We got to the steepest bit of wall for this one. And it was this red and yellow boulder that I think was probably the most powerful boulder of the whole round. I'm not sure how many tops it got. Maybe you know, Rory, but hardly any. And the start I found okay, but then by the time you got to the top, it was just really bad slopers, a really bad pinch, and a really powerful move. And that was the one that stopped me as well. And then the final boulder was this black triple paddle dyno, and a lot of competitors found the paddle bit really difficult. The holds were quite positive, but because of the distance and the steepness of the wall, you really had to hit the holds accurately and generate with the momentum properly. And I watched a lot of people try it, and they were really engaging their biceps and using a lot of power, but that is absolutely not my climbing style. And in my video that I watched back of me doing it, my arms are like completely straight, and I literally just like swung on the holds like I don't know, I didn't engage a single muscle for that move. So that was definitely an interesting one in that there was different ways to do it. And then the top was just like a classic power, more power. So for a typical qualification round for the women, I would say it was pretty powerful. But over the past kind of 5 years, we've definitely seen so it's male setting teams typically, but we've definitely seen them stop underestimating the strength that women have and start forcing more power boulders into the round, whereas probably like 5 years ago they would have been a lot less powerful, and even the steep boulders would have been significantly easier. But I do think it's nice that they're no longer underestimating what we're capable of, especially the top end of the field like Zoe, Emma, Lucy, so powerful. So it's good that they get a chance to show their strength.
Yeah, you needed about 44 points to get into semi-finals, which is about a top and a couple of extra zones, so 1 top 3 zones and old money, and which is quite hard. Normally, I think it's like you're looking at, because qualifications is 5 boulders, you're looking at sort of 2 or 3 tops usually needed to get into qualies in World Cups on average. And then the trend very much continued for the women's, that the semi-final setting was also quite hard, and that you needed, I think it was 2 zones got you into finals, which is an incredibly hard round.
Louise needs to tell us about the mantle problem.
Oh no!
That was my favourite problem of that whole round as well. It was such a good boulder.
So good. It was the best moment.
The mantle problem. So basically, what happened on the mantle problem? Well, I come out and I'm like, yes, a weird boulder, because when people ask me what's your favourite climbing style, I can only, my only descriptor is weird. I love weird climbs. Anything that's weird, like cracks, volumes, I'll take it. So it's like, oh, perfect. They've set one that I'll like. But I'm not like super strong at the minute. So by the time that I'd got through the bottom section, which was pretty powerful, especially the move out to the zone. I was kind of a bit knackered. So I decided, this is quite a comfortable resting position. So I'm just going to have a wee rest, sit here for a minute. That was a bad idea. I got a bit too comfortable on that volume and ended up being sat on the volume for 1 minute and 40 seconds, which is terrible. Literally 2/3 of my time in that whole boulder was spent sat on that volume. And I did get stuck. Like, the reason that I was on the volume for so long was because I was stuck on the volume. But luckily I managed to get out of it finally after nearly 2 minutes. And I did try and climb the top, but that was a waste of time and I couldn't get back up there. So yeah, at least I got a good photo of it, but apart from that, I wouldn't recommend doing it.
You made good progress on that one. Like, not many people actually got to the top section, and it only got one top in the whole round. Like, only Izzy Bridgens actually topped it.
Yeah, that's kind of my one that got away boulder, because I think I could have done it if I'd not been so flustered after getting stuck on that volume. I think I probably could have just thought about it a bit better and used. Izzy Bridgens did a really nice right toe hook on the underside of the big left-hand volume, and I think that was the unlock that most people missed, including myself. So if I could go back and try one boulder again, it would definitely be that one.
It was so harsh how it was like a hard bottom bit and then an equally hard top, or like even harder top. It was just, at least, yeah, it was kind of harsh, but it was good. I think you've got a future in trad climbing, like mantling.
Yes, so funny you say that. I do actually quite like trad, so watch this space, I guess.
I did feel like they saved all the tops for the final round for the women's a little bit. It did feel a little bit, especially with all of the podium topping all of the boulders and it coming down to attempts, which is a little bit probably sad. But I did kind of feel they showed how in the first two rounds, like, they really made the selections they needed to, and they kind of tried to have fun in the finals. I very much like the semi-final boulders. The women's selection looked far better and far more interesting to me, and I enjoyed more than the men's. But then in the final, the men's boulders were more interesting.
Yeah, I think that came across online as well, because I guess the first women's boulder, I think pretty much everyone topped. And then I remember the paddle, number 4 paddle dyno was quite cool. The other two were like more power based, like pinchy. But yeah, the men's, I just remember like the slab falling into that corner and then jumping into the like crucifix between the blobs. I was like, oh, my shoulders are hurting just watching it. So that was definitely more memorable, for sure.
Yeah, it was quite cool having some of those weird boulders. Like, so this is Pierre's fault. So first women's qualification boulder, Louise, is a Pierre block with the weird. It had like this, like, big kind of like you were doing like skate feet. So you were kind of like dynoing and then going left, right, left in order to stop yourself, and you having that really sort of technical kind of coordination. And then the final in the women's, the semi-final, like the final block, was another Pierre block where you had the lâcher of trust, really. That reminded me of Big Air in the peaks, where you have to jump from one boulder to a slab and essentially not slide off, otherwise you're going down the ravine between the two boulders.
So far. But Iggy did it, so it's not that far.
And then like the weird shoulder mantle press one, that was a Pierre boulder. And the final hold was originally at the top of the wall, and they moved it down to be lower down and underneath the press. So it did start off a lot higher up, and then they clearly made decisions to make it easier.
Well, I heard that the decision to move the hold down was actually so that there was no like height bias, and they didn't want people to be able to just cheat it by reaching. But I actually really liked having the low down finish because I think it's just a bit interesting. I think, well, I actually just recently did a YouTube video which is like 2026 climbing predictions, and one of my kind of key predictions is that things are just going to start getting a bit more weird. And I think national championships is like a place where the route setters kind of have the freedom to play a bit more, especially in finals when, you know, everyone's already qualified for the team by that point. It's not a World Cup. There's no world climbing that's going to dictate like what they can do. So I think that having the finish hold down low was just like a bit fun. I quite liked it. Yeah.
It also gave great photo opportunities. Like, I think Rhys Conlon's face when he matched was my favourite one of the lot. He was so psyched for that.
Yeah, what was cool on the men's jumpy into the blob crucifix one, like I think there were about 3 or 4 different ways of doing it. Like somebody swung and jumped straight into both of them, and then somebody like flew into like one side of it and then pressed around and turned around. Somebody else did it another way, so there were like completely different ways of doing the same move, which is always best for spectators and probably quite fun for the athletes as well.
So Routesetters did a good job.
Yeah, I'd say so. They normally get slandered in like podcasts and reviews, so we'll give them some credit for once.
Yeah, it must be really good for the British team as well to have this experience of different route setters. Like I know we're doing more like training events with outside setters and IFSC or world climbing setters now, but yeah, the more experience that they can get of different setters at different levels is better, all the better really.
And I think it definitely will have been a conscious choice to bring in those external setters, because that's not just something that you fall into or fly someone across from France. But I think under the new head of performance, Laura, their GB team, although I've left now, it does actually seem to have improved in terms of the training setup and the initiative that they're taking in like the opportunities outside of the UK and bringing in external points of view, or like just external setters, external training camps. Even earlier this week, the GB team's been at France on a camp, and I believe that they're going to Japan later in the year. So I think it's great that the GB team have realised, we can actually learn from training with these other countries, and it's also just fun for the athletes. So I definitely appreciate the fact that they brung in those setters from across the sea.
So what are your plans, Louise, going forward after coming 10th, after not competing for a year?
Well, 10th place. Sounds not bad, but it's actually my worst British Championships result ever. So my first year I was 9th. My second and third year I was 3rd, and then now I'm back to 10th. My plans for this year, I haven't fully decided yet. So obviously I did the British Championships. Someone said to me at the event, like, "Oh, well done on your comeback," and I was like, that wasn't a comeback. I haven't been training properly. That was very much a benchmarking event for me. So I'm working full time at the minute. One thing that I want to do is kind of get into a better routine of balancing training with working and like getting into a routine again. So I'm gonna use what I've learned from the British Championships in terms of my strengths and weaknesses to kind of build a training plan and kind of just enjoy the art of like improvement again. So although I haven't quite decided what comps I'm going to do, I'm definitely going to be doing Quiff because it's the last Quiff. So I feel like I can't miss that one. North Face Climb Fest in summer, hopefully that will come back, which was the big deep water soloing event from 2 years ago. I'd be really keen to do that one. In terms of like outside of that, I want to get back to Font. I want to climb Ate on the board. I don't know. I'm so debating on if I want to go back to comps. It's so hard to balance comp climbing with education, and I still need to go back and do a year of university. Also, comp climbing is not going to make, like, I can't really afford to live if I try and do climbing full time. So I need to work. So it's all about the balance of trying to live, afford to live, trying to climb. But yeah, I think at the minute after taking the year off comps, the main thing for me was to get back to a place where I enjoy climbing and it's not a chore, it's something that I actually like doing. And that's kind of where I am now. I still have days where I just can't be bothered, but overall I'm much happier with climbing, and I like doing, like, I've got on my TikTok page, it's all just silly instead of serious like it was. So I would say if you want to know what comps I'll be doing, you're gonna have to wait another few months until I can decide. But in terms of climbing, I will definitely be doing something. I just haven't decided what yet.
I'm excited to see whatever you choose to do. You have a wonderful energy through TikTok and through Instagram, and bringing that silliness to climbing, because climbing can get very serious for a completely pointless sport and completely pointless activity, which we all enjoy a lot, but it is completely pointless. And we do it to be silly and to remind ourselves. And I think you do a great job on your social media through TikTok, one of the very few TikTokers, because climbing media mostly lives on Instagram. And it's been always great to see you be silly and do those things.
Yeah, I love your videos. That's so funny.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's funny because hardly anyone's on TikTok, and I like have a love-hate relationship with TikTok. Sometimes it's so good, and then sometimes you just get like just a ton of nonsense on there, and I'm like, what is this? App's terrible. I just ignore it for like a week. But overall, I think it's overall I think social media, if it's used right, is positive. But it's about using it right, because there's also a lot of negative content on there.